Now, if we move a bit more into the question of strategy in the business case, which answers the question, where do you put the business case responsibility? Yeah. I don't know if you know those two companies because they're more or less European, but Prada is a luxury brand that where you can buy a handbag that's going to cost you $5,000. Yeah. And Primark is
That's
actually
on the
the
cheap
other
side.
thing.
That's on the cheap side. I've seen in Hong
Yeah,
Kong much more
yeah.
expensive.
So there the bag maybe costs $5. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it does not make sense that they have the same strategy. It's completely nonsense to align their strategy. Yeah. But it's very easy to compare their financials. Yeah. And you would even be surprised if Prada had a 5% EBITDA margin and Primark had a 25% EBITDA margin. You would be like, oh, something's off here, right? So basically, you understand by looking at that, it doesn't make sense that everybody has the same strategy, but it makes sense that everybody can be compared on EBIT margins. Yeah.
absolutely.
So we basically said, why don't we apply the same principle to sustainability? Yeah. So we have those five strategies that basically say, um, as an example, legal compliance risk management. If it's purely a legal compliance risk that you're trying to manage, and I'm not saying you're trying to be legal compliance, I'm trying to say to manage future changes in regulation. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because being compliant is the baseline. Yeah. Then Prada, for example, may choose to focus on reputation. Yeah. Maybe not so good if the sewer is not paid fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
If the bag costs $5,000, then I don't know. Yeah. Not a good idea. Whereas, and by the way, nowadays I'd say they probably more focus on brand today. Yeah. But for Primark, for example, only a pragmatic approach makes sense to focus on productivity gains. Yeah.
And for our audience, Primark, it's in which industry sector?
They're both in the same apparel industry. They're both apparel industry. Yeah. But for Prada, it's a luxury brand, and for them, it's either making sure there's no reputational issues or brand differentiation. Yeah.
Okay.
Those two things make sense for luxury. Yeah. Primark is low cost, and for them, only a productivity focused approach makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah. If you are maybe a different industry, maybe then, or even in the same industry, you could also choose a strategic approach, trying to sell under a sub brand, under a sub label or something, some sustainable garments products, yeah, some
Hmm.
sustainable shirts, and try to basically grow within your existing business. Yeah. And we all probably know Patagonia doing a a big ad in New York Times saying, "Don't buy my jacket," and everybody runs buying it, and the revenue goes up 15%. So the ad didn't work, or maybe it did. Yeah.
Clever advertising, maybe.
Yeah. So those are different strategies that can make sense. And with the impact accounting framework that we develop, you can also have different ambitions. Yeah. For a chemical company, it will be hard to be in the green zone, for example. Yeah. Um, for a software company, it will be hard to be in the red zone. Yeah. So once you understand this better, you can say, oh, interesting. Yeah, you're in the red zone as expected, or you have a low EBIT margin as expected.
Martin, can you
Yes.
do comparative analysis? So if you are a chemical company and you are next to other three, you still can be in a relative green zone of your industry.
You can always be exactly, yeah. You can either be better than your sector average, yeah, or you can be better than a competition, yeah. Or you basically say, okay, I have looked at my product portfolio and understand what's happening downstream. Yeah. and all of my red problematic products, they end up in a green product at the end. So
Okay.
it's not so much problematic, yeah, but it's a little bit more sophisticated questions that you answer and discuss than saying, do you meet a certification or not? Yeah. So let me also talk a little bit about the strategy about the top first, because it's quite common that people say, oh, we need a tick the box exercise and we just need to make sure that everybody does the best. Yeah? Everybody follows the, let's say, the Patagonia management approach. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you don't follow the Patagonia management approach, you're a bad company. Yeah. Now, in the best case example or scenario, this actually works. Yeah. So you have a lot of extra costs because of additional processes and teams that you have to hire and pay, and buy more expensive resources. Da da da. Yeah. You have to increase the price, and your customers love it and they pay it. Yeah. In this case, great, it worked. Yeah, double dividend. In all other cases, these requirements, the Patagonia approach, does not fit the strategy of the firm. Yeah. And then you have three cases. Worst case one, the company still does what the stakeholders demand from them. They have way more costs. Their competitiveness goes down. Yeah. And the competition, who did not have those costs, says, thank you very much for the
Mm-hmm.
market share. Yeah. So double loss and bad PR for sustainability or ESG. Yeah. Worst case two, the company says, oh, yes, we do all of that, but they do nothing. It's a PR
Okay.
show. Yeah. They lie to
Mm.
the public, de facto.
Greenwashing
Yeah.
and
They say,
misreporting.
oh, we do all of that, but it's not true. Yeah. Or they say, I'm not stupid. I know already that if I do all of that, I'm going to have costs and no one's going to pay me. And they do nothing. They do not change anything. Yeah. And in those last two cases, those two companies miss out potential opportunities and may overlook business risk. And for society, it's also not good. Yeah.
So sort of back to the one of the early questions, should they still do a business case exercise to make
Absolutely.
sure that
Yeah, yeah.
there's, please
That's
go ahead.
exactly. That's why we have those five different approaches that can make sense. And the left approach is the last one. Yeah? It's number five, a brand strategy. I'm not saying that people should not go for the brand strategy. I'm just saying this this can be a plausible option, yeah, but it's not the only one.
Right, and let me dwell for a second in brand strategies. But if I understand, you create a green sub-brand or brand, right? But
Yeah, you
you have to
basically give a
to rework your whole supply chain, at least for the green bank. Otherwise, you are in whatever the gray area, greenwashing, or so.
yeah,
It's not as simple as sticking a label and saying, "Okay, this is fair labor, fair trade, fair,
yeah,
fair
yeah,
coffee
yeah.
growing."
Yeah, it is. It's basically given a promise then that if you buy this brand, then it's impossible to be more sustainable by buying from someone else,
Hmm.
basically. Yeah. And I mean, I'm a customer here and there myself. Yeah. So, but um, the basic thing is like the company that produced the screw inside your glasses. They cannot make an ad saying "Don't buy our screws." Yeah,
Right.
because no one knows the company and no one knows that they're actually in your glasses. Yeah, so um, but these companies exist as well, and they need to think about how do I manage sustainability. Yeah, and they cannot say cannot make an ad "Don't buy my screws." Yeah,
Sure.
it
No,
doesn't
and
work. Yeah. Um, So maybe coming back to the question of yeah, labels and what to follow. You basically said for way for certified or something, yeah. Um, what currently very much is predominant is kind of those labels, yeah, that are typically binary labels or labels that tell you, oh, this is aligned or something, yeah. And what we have seen a lot of companies sitting in front of those labels, like the shadows on the wall, they make a lot of notes and they produce a lot of paper, so a lot of reporting, yeah, but they don't move, so they don't change. Yeah.
Hmm.
And of course, you also have the lighthouse projects that sound great, yeah, but also don't make people change. Yeah. Yeah, they make a good story, but they don't change. And of course, you have the people behind the labels that either believe in them or they depend on them. Yeah.
Um,
And especially in the US, we also have the what I call anything goes economists that say we have to get rid of the lighthouse, yeah, the anti-ESG movement, yeah, that partially also have a very valid criticism, I have to say. Just was at a conference from the IFRS, from ISSB, and there was a speaker quoting some of those anti-ESG economists saying, "Oh, this is bad because of da 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 da," and I said, like, wait a minute, that critique is actually a valid one, yeah.
oh,
But it becomes a binary question from either you are part of the feel good economy, which I call feel good economy, or the anything goes economy, and they try to basically fight each other. They say, well, maybe what we actually need is a make good economy, yeah, where we reach climate targets, where we reach biodiversity targets, where we reach economic growth and prosperity, yeah. But we're not going to get there by a planning approach where some scientists determine, oh, this industry should do this, this industry should do that. This is not how economics work.
no, absolutely. And economics are on a feedback loop, right? So as you already showed in many of the slides, you'll have unintended consequences on both sides.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And I always like to say, if you don't know your impacts, you don't know the knives you are running into, and you don't see the baskets, the fruit basket that is laying at the side of the road that you could pick up. Yeah. So
Hmm.
you basically, even if you say, I don't care at all about climate change, about biodiversity, about sustainability, about ESG, I don't care about all of that. Yeah. I always say, but you should be aware of the financial implications of being ignorant if you want. Yeah. Or if you say, I don't care, yeah, you probably care about financials. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm not saying you should be the saver of the world, but you should be aware of the risks and opportunities that are lying out there, and then take them into account. Um, so the question also often comes, and I have one client that confirmed to me again, you have all those management approaches that exist, yeah, and they exist for the sake of paper. In most cases, they exist because somebody demands you to have them. Yeah? But apart from the time when there's the audit, yeah, things are managed not exactly like the management system wants. So we said, okay, why don't we find a way to integrate all of that from a business perspective? Yeah. We always have the public perspective from the impact accounting. We always have that transparent and no possibility to fool around. Yeah. But when it comes to the question, what does a company do and why, you have to take the business perspective. Yeah. And when it comes to business case and strategy, you typically have two different cycles. You have the strategy cycle that is typically multi-year, and you have the execution cycle that is basically ongoing or once a year. Yeah. And we thought a lot about how can we best integrate the whole approach into a strategic impact management system that aims for financial advantage and improving impacts at the same time. Yeah. So the starting point is to say, okay, maybe informed already by operations, you basically, as a management, have to say, okay, what is the direction and scope we want the strategy to address? Yeah. And here you can nowadays with AI and all the tools that we have, you can do already a very first initial impact, value and risk strategy status quo assessment. Yeah. Basically telling the management from a preliminary point of view, these are the impacts, value and risk implications that you have, and your current management approach is very inconsistent and
Okay.
we don't know what you want, or it currently applies that strategy. Yeah. And from our point of view, it is outdated or it is fine. I don't know. Yeah. So the management basically has to determine the base camp that is going to be assessed further in the second step. Yeah.
Okay.
So how much time, money, and effort do you want to spend in understanding that better? Yeah. And already there, it's not a one size fits all approach. Yeah. It's a question of risk appetite and strategic choice. Yeah.
And actually, it's sort of you are already on a strategic path. I would say
Yeah.
you do strategy regardless if you want it or not, because time moves.
Exactly. Absolutely. So in the second step, the assessment phase, you basically try to remove estimates or make estimates more accurate. Yeah.
Okay.
And you try to understand better the value and risk implications. Yeah. So that when you go then back to the top management in the third phase, you make sure that the strategy that you choose as a management
Hmm.
is going to manage the most important impacts and value and risk implications. Yeah. And before you actually go to the operation and say, we now change everything, yeah, you should basically in the step four understand this is how we've been doing business before. We want to change things. That's why we have to think about what will people maybe do or not do?
Hmm.
Yeah? How will people react or not react?
Sure.
Those changes. Yeah. What will be the frictions? What will be problems? Yeah. So how do we organize that?
You getting into the methodologies for transformation, which are still evolving. Let me be kind to the methodologies.
Yeah, so this is basically step four is the change management aspect of things.
Yes.
Yeah. And then when you go in the execution cycle, you have to obviously implement the changes. You have to set up monitoring processes, including reporting, that you then also go to the public and basically have an ongoing management cycle of the strategy until you have the start of the next strategy cycle, where basically you are able to give feedback to the strategy cycle by saying, oh, what you formally try to understand under assess actually turned out to be different or whatever. Yeah. Because future is about something that we know to some questions, yeah, but to most questions, it's a perception. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the reason why we did that was to say, okay, we want to create a guide that aims at creating business benefit, where the management says we do this because it adds value and not because it adds a paper.
So, Martin, the strategic impact management system, uh, is not only about sustainability, right?
No, it's a holistic management approach that aims at making the integrating sustainability impacts or ESG,
Right.
however you want to call it, into the strategy and management
So,
processes.
so in some way, I can take it as strategy augmentation, right? We have
Yes.
already the strategy for the product and the competitive position and so on,
Yeah.
and now I can superimpose the sustainability and come up with a augmented strategy.
Yeah. So it's again, all those steps, or most of those steps, are have a variation depending on the ambition. Yeah. So basically, those five ambitions, whenever you read strategy, yeah, you see that the implications are different depending on what is the bet that I'm taking.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. It's
So I think that is important to understand. And coming back to the question, why should you actually care or do something about it? Yeah. And even if you say, oh, I'm not a sustainability advocate or ESG advocate or impact advocate or whatever, you should know that climate and societal impacts, they are financial risks and opportunities. Yeah.
mm,
Why? Because I mean, you always have, from the investor point of view, the ask financial performance. The clients, they don't ask financial performance; they want good value for money. Yeah. When you
sure,
buy those glasses, you don't say, "Hey, can I give you double the money?" Yeah. Of course, the glass the company that produces the glass, they would say, "Oh, please give me double the money." Yeah. But you say, "No, I don't want to pay double the money. I want to have good value for money."
sure.
So it's a different question. But both more and more ask, what is sustainability? What are the impacts that we are financing? What is the impacts that I have when I buy those glasses? Um, and more, they ask for not good stories, but tangible numbers. Yeah? That not tell you something that you can't really understand. Yeah, how many grams of CO2 did your glasses have? Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. Yeah. But if you can say, oh, it had positive impacts, oh, good. Even if you don't understand it fully, but you can tell if you can trust this information, then positive sounds
And
good. No?
I notice, especially with air travel, I notice a lack of transparency. It's like, okay, you can pay X dollars to offset the cost of CO2. It's like, what exactly, where my dollars are going, right? Back to,
Yeah, it's a counting question, absolutely. Yeah. And the key thing I think to remember is that if you're really smart, you make a plausible alignment between ESG or sustainability and strategy, and not in a tick box exercise. Yeah. And most important, inaction is not a strategy. Yeah.
absolutely, no, in action is reaction. The strategy
Hopefully.
is reaction, right? You react because there's no action, you react to.
Yeah. Then compliance eats strategy for breakfast. No.
Exactly. But one particular aspect in this is companies are going into the sustainability. We noticed recently a trend from the financial industry, which measures risk, right? Different risk, right? Financial risk and
Yeah.
insurance risk.
Yeah.
And I think they will push actually for um uh, learning about the strategy of the company, not the reporting, right? They can read the report by themselves, but they will need to understand the strategy, because loans and insurance, it's about the future. It's not about the past.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I see that as well, and I mean, it's still the market is still young, or the systems behind it are still young in the sense of um, a lot of financial institutions are still struggling to measure impact properly, to make the connection to value and risk properly, and to be able to assess if the strategy of a firm actually matches the value and risk profile of the firm, or if it matches tick the box exercises. The financial industry, including investors and insurers, are still in a stage where they struggle to make up a plausible way of assessing this. Yeah, it's
Our our
it's a
initial
highly
analysis,
complicated
yes,
question.
our initial analysis actually shows, Martin, that banks have funds earmarked for green, from the financial system. There are earmarked for green bonds, green investments. When they come to uh, ask the companies for documentation, because they don't have the skills, they don't have the science to analyze the sustainability of a company, it results in ticking boxes, and results in the cost of ticking boxes is higher maybe than the differential in the loan. You may have 1.1% cheaper loans, but you pay 2% to get it. So
Well, I'm not sure about that one, but I think the problem is more that um, it's a little bit like stabbing in the dark. Yeah, I mean, you try to understand what you should ask for, and all what you see at the moment is the labels that you see on that thingy here. You see aligned. That could be EU taxonomy aligned or SBTI aligned or whatever. Yeah, I mean, you see alignment, and alignment says, for example, taxonomy. You have the green asset ratio, and I just recently did a post on two banks, one sustainable bank and a larger direct bank. And I said, like, what do those two banks have in common? And the answer was the zero in front of the green asset ratio, 0.x%. Yeah? I
right.
mean, the whole system is ill-designed. Yeah? The same is with ESG ratings. ESG ratings, what do they measure? They measure their own interpretation on what are the risks from ESG from a company, you know, or environmentally friendly or certified or tick the box. They all of those are these are the majority of frameworks out there, and
Right.
this
And
financial institutions use when assessing companies. But they more and more understand is that these frameworks are not helpful.
absolutely, we observe the same.
Yeah, so
We
that's a little bit the problem. And we basically say, irrespective of if you do it with us or with someone else, first understand where you are. Second, make sure you understand the implications of that. Choose a strategy that matches your risk opportunity profile. Make sure that it's not done for paper, but it's done real. Yeah.
okay.
And then deliver and track, learn, keep learning. Yeah. Keep asking yourself, was it the right choice? What have we achieved? Yeah. And it's a super complicated question, because when you ask, okay, what have we achieved? You always can get your financial statements audited, but you will not get the financial statement audited that you would have had if you would have not done something.
Right. The cost avoidance or
Yeah, I mean, you can always try to understand, okay, what would have happened if, da 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 da, yeah, but it becomes a perception again because all that you see in your financial statements are the actual numbers, but you
Right.
don't see the numbers that would have been there if you would have not implemented a different strategy. Yeah.
And this is we're moving into a problem in general with finance and the way we measure financially companies because you 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 cannot put the savings on the spreadsheet, right? You can put only the cost.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, I think it's not so necessarily a problem. It's just something you have to understand and realize. Yeah, and it's something also for the standard setter would be good if they understand and realize that it doesn't make sense to standardize financial sustainability in a financial neutrality way
Right.
because it's impossible to standardize that.
Well, absolutely. Actually, if you look at the risk corner of sustainability in 10K reports in the US, I call it the boilerplate because always they put these risks, right? And if you compare 10 companies, they all have the risk of floods, risk of acts of God, risk of
Yeah,
uh,
this then when
riots. Yeah.
compliance eats strategy for breakfast. That's what's happened. You basically get information that doesn't tell you anything. Yeah,
And it's the same across, as you showed, across all the reports. So it's null, right? If it's the same information, it's null. They cannot have the same risks.
exactly. Yeah, and that's the problem. So if you would want to standardize sustainability from a financial point of view, yeah, you would have to standardize. You couldn't assess. Okay, what is the deviation from plan? Yeah, you can ask. Show me the plan that you had for a year. Show me the deviations from plan. You can say what of those deviations came from sustainability. Okay, you can do that. But how do you want to standardize and be able to compare plan? You would need to become Honecker again. Yeah, you would need to become a central planner
Right.
and say, oh, for this industry, we have this much HR cost, this much marketing cost, and da, da, da. You would need to standardize all those positions in order to be able
And
to do a
it
proper
did
assessment of financial impacts on
it
sustainability.
didn't work in the past, so I don't see it working in the future.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Uh,
that's it only makes sense to standardize impact accounting because there you can assess company any product, any company, anything. You can assess it and you can standardize that assessment.
right.
Everything is highly important, no doubt about it, but it's a private question. It's a private choice question. What was your plan? Was a private choice. What was the deviation from plan? Was fact. Yeah? And what is your strategy? You cannot standardize strategy.
No, absolutely.
The only thing that happens when you do that is you produce only PR. Because people will say, yes, of course.
For
Yes, of
sure.
course. But
Sure.
no.
Sure. It's I always joke about the marketing that you'll never see it's a double negative, right? Never see a negative message coming out of marketing, right?
I think I think it's a little bit system driven. The problem with marketing is a little bit system driven because we don't have a standardized impact accounting that takes away the possibility to greenwash. Yeah.
Right.
If that would be out of the game, then hell yeah, we need marketing. We need to be able to tell and help consumers to um, change their choices. Yeah, because
Sure.
ultimately it's about their choices. Yeah, but um, given that there's a lack of impact accounting in a proper way, the doors are open and you either have too much greenwashing or you have the opposite, you have green hushing, yeah, where
We
companies actually do something, but they are afraid to talk about it.
By the way, talking to some of the large companies in the US, there is a lot of greenwashing going on right now.
Yeah. I
Mm,
mean, I understand. I mean, especially in the US, I understand it. But I mean, some of the benefits you can only get if you talk about it. Yeah. Some of the benefits you can get without talking about it. So it needs to be informed decision when you talk about stuff and when you don't talk about stuff.
Absolutely. But before we finish today's conversation, and we'd like you back soon, uh, do you have recommendations for students, new graduates, and professionals that are considering sustainability, especially in the context of today's presentation?
Absolutely. I would say in general, make sure you understand because when I was a student at their age, I was completely lost in the numerous initiatives that even existed back then, many years ago. Yeah. I was completely lost in translation. Yeah. So don't bother so much about all those frameworks and requirements. And yes, you will probably need to be able to know them so you can say, yes, I know them. Yeah. But the most important thing to remember is sustainability is not about reporting. It's about the impacts that an economic activity has on society. When you ask the question, what should a company do? You need to switch perspective and say the company needs to do what is the most plausible thing for the company to do from a strategic point of view. And if you understand that this is not enough, then you can always make sure that the company lobbies for regulation to change in a way that actually allows you to be doing more. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
But if you
Absolutely.
do something more before it pays out, you only risk of making the company lose competitive advantage.
So, and I met mid-career people switching to sustainability from different professions, from legal to technical to engineering to even medical professions.
Yes.
Do you have a separate recommendation for them? Because those people accumulated a body of knowledge in their domain.
Absolutely. I mean, in general, I think it's always good to understand the expertise that they have and the things that they don't understand. I mean, you probably have heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Yeah.
Yes,
Probably very applicable to them, and they should be aware of it as well. So they should be careful about thinking that they have understood everything too fast. Yeah. But at the same time, they should still have the freedom to question things. Yeah. Because in the sustainability bubble, as I call it, there's way too many people that don't question if the
sure.
thing, the things that they think is good, if they're really good. Yeah. So it's always good to have a critical mindset, to question things and ask things, and by that learn. Even if you're already quite advanced in your career, be cautious about this dilemma.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time to visit with us today.
My
Make
pleasure.
sure to tune in every week for a new episode of AKFI Actionable ESG Talk series. You'll gain new perspectives on how to mitigate risks and create value, especially in this case through strategy, by integrating ESG and digital transformation. Again, until next time, Martin, thank you very much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much, Manuel.